Do they allow Zionists in here?
This is not about
Do they allow Zionists in here?
Jewish and Zionists are different.
Tell me the difference.
Hey, look at your YouTube channel. I see it with TRIGGERnometry, and you're a fascist.
Who is this guy? You don't
Since the 7th of October, protests have erupted over campus and students at many prestigious universities have set up encampments, refusing entry to both students and staff alike by taking over the buildings. With the narratives from both sides often distorting the reality on the ground, we are heading into the heart of the protests to interview those involved in the hope of finding out what they want to achieve. Excuse me, would you like to be interviewed? Okay. So, hello, sir. Would you like to be interviewed to talk about the protest?
But who are you?
We're independent UK media. We're a channel.
Oh, UK?
Yeah.
And are you Zionists? Zionism is a branch of fascism, okay? And what they're doing is just part of their ideology, and they want to ethnic cleanse by means of genocide, by starvation, by bombing, by causing diseases to spread, by cutting off water. By all these means is what we call, and the United Nations has recognized that, it's a genocide is what's going on. So that's why I'm here.
Okay. How do you think we solve this crisis and this war?
Well, you know, the students and all of the other movements across the world have to rise up, have to cause their governments to divest, to economically sanction Israel, and hopefully some Israel, because there are some Israelis who want to support to end the war and end the aggression that's going on. So, but in the main part, the Middle East has to come together, rise up, push their collaborative, well, we could say comprador, but this collaborative capitalist ruling classes of their various countries. I'm talking about Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and so forth. And they have to force their government's hand to divest, to break off relations with Israel until Israel is made, to render justice and to end the occupation. And my own personal dream is that there will be a secular, democratic Palestine that includes all who want to live there, except for the criminals, the Israeli criminals. And as far as the Palestinians, they have the right to resist. They have the right to resist. Never mind what group or what they're doing. I put all of the violence that the Palestinians use at their disposal to resist occupation and oppression. I put that at the feet of Israel. It's not the Palestinians. The Palestinians have a right to resist, and that's throughout history, even this country. So we need to support them.
Hello, would you like to be interviewed? We're independent UK media, no worries at all. Hey.
Sorry, actually turned down the interview.
Okay. Would you be interested in talking? You'll be alright. Sir, with UK independent media, we're wondering if you'd like to be interviewed.
UK independent media.
Yeah, indeed.
And what do you think about the Nakba? 76 years ago. What do you think about the Nakba?
Well, I'm here to talk to people, and I'm here to get you.
I'm asking you a question.
I like to remain independent. So
there's no fucking independence in this fucking world. Come on. That's you're from the UK. Go talk to somebody who's a local 4811 official. Get the official story from local 4811, okay?
Okay.
Or somebody with a rank and file sign or something. Go get the official story.
Would you not want to talk, sir? So there's a little bit of hostility there. Didn't really expect that. You know, I think it's, you can say like no or hey, I'm not interested. But there was a little bit of aggression there. But maybe this is a very contentious issue and it's kind of understandable that people are going to be aggressive. Maybe. I don't know. Or maybe it's just lunchtime and he hasn't had a sandwich. When all seemed hopeless, we bumped into a group of students who introduced us to their friend Tomo, a law student here at UCLA who had some reservations about the encampments due to his own personal experiences since the Hamas attack.
I accept that people have the right to protest, I just don't believe with the terms that they say for the most part.
And what are their terms?
I think some people do support pro-Palestine because being a Zionist does not mean you're not pro-Palestinian. I think some of them are pro-Hamas, and I don't think they understand what's the difference between those two groups. Palestinians are being oppressed by Hamas, and Hamas is a terrorist organization that committed the terrible atrocities on October 7th.
Why are they not making that distinction?
It's because they're not thinking for themselves. They're being told a narrative. There's very little thinking. They're just screaming in names. Colonizer, genocide, apartheid. I'm keep hearing all three of these names and they all call me buddy. Like, what's up, buddy? Yeah, buddy. Like, it's either just ad hominem attacks or just labels that they give them, and they have no way to explain them. They have a set of plans to engage in a protest on every single day, but this has been one of the biggest ones, and it's probably because Chancellor Gene Block just testified.
UCLA Chancellor Gene Block has drawn criticism over his decision to enlist police to help disband encampments, resulting in more than 200 arrests.
They took over Ackerman. They also took off Kirkhoff Hall and Moore Hall, I believe Kirkhoff Patio, but essentially they blocked these institutions from being entered, so kids can't go to their classes, and then they're stuck online, and they don't do so well online, and it affects their grades. And it's going to negatively affect this institution's reputation if all the kids are online, and also it's against the policy. They promised us in person. They did online a week ago. So
what you're basically saying is they're preventing students from going to class. They're physically barring the way.
yeah, so for instance, I'm supposed to have an exam here soon. I'm not going to be able to have this exam here. I don't think. I have to speak out to my teachers now. So that's one problem that I'm facing. I feel very uncomfortable being here. I feel like I walked into like a war zone. Like I'm just trying to have a good time in college. Personally, for me, I feel like this whole school year has been robbed. It's like everything's political. I can't really say anything. I can't really do anything. And I'm afraid that if I say who I am, my teachers will give me low grades. So it's very frustrating for me. And I also want to have a good time with my friends. And everybody here wants to. Everyone's really tired of this.
And what's the atmosphere like on campus at the moment?
Very dark, very gloomy. I don't like it. I feel like it's a sunny day, but it feels very dark in my soul. I don't like it.
And so what is your racial background?
My racial background, I'm Semitic. So I know there's different ways to view race, but I'm Semitic. My parents are Israeli. I'm Jewish. I was born in Florida. So I'd say Middle Eastern.
Do you feel uncomfortable being Jewish at the moment on campus?
Absolutely. Personally, I would never tell my professor I'm Jewish. I don't tell people that I know that I'm Jewish. I only would ever say it to people that I know are also Jewish. I'm absolutely certain. And honestly, if I say I'm Jewish, probably people will ignore me. That's how it's been most of the time.
Was this directly after October 7th, or has it gradually seeped into the culture?
Ever since October 7th, it's been this way. Ever since October 7th. That day, just my Jewish identity, I feel like I've been targeted for it.
And has people said things to you because of the fact that you're Jewish? Have you been threatened, etc.?
Yes, but I don't believe it's something I want to say on camera.
Violence erupting on the campus of UCLA overnight.
Tensions again flaring up over the war in Gaza.
Chaos again on the campus at UCLA.
Dissent is essential to democracy, but dissent must never lead to disorder or to denying the rights of others so students can finish the semester in their college education.
Why do you think this has erupted in the manner that it has?
These people are communists. It's not a conspiracy theory. Another thing that I noticed inside their camps is always Marxist literature. The revolutionary communists are here. They're somewhere right behind me. I've seen them every day that I've been here. There is communist posters everywhere. There's when I was in the encampment that was over here at Royce, there was hammer and sickles spray painted all over the floor inside the encampment. It was the second most common symbol that I saw other than the Palestinian flag. I went undercover inside the camp. So I think the ringleaders are communists. They use the Gaza conflict as a catalyst to get people out, and then they slowly try to convert them. They read communist literature at their assemblies. So I think that's why it's erupted. These people, like, there's no way they care this much about Gaza. Like, it's a big conflict that's happening, but there are very clearly ulterior motives. They talk a lot about intersectionality, race issues, gay issues, ableism, pretty much anything that could apply to everyone to draw them in. So if you are literally a walking, living, breathing human being, there's probably something they could use to draw you in.
Do you think part of it as well is this is really the first war that has erupted in the social media age? So people are seeing clips of war, which is obviously horrible and awful, children being killed, women being killed, and that has really triggered a lot of people.
I mean, no, I don't think so. Ukraine, that erupted in the media age. There's plenty of people in Ukraine with cell phones, probably more than in Gaza. And also the Ukraine war is way worse. They're talking about 30,000 dead. When Russia invaded Mariupol with a population of 400,000, significantly lowered population density, they killed 30,000 people in the first 30 days. They don't care about people dying. Like, the death toll for this conflict, even if we accept the Hamas reported numbers, which are they've been debunked by like Abraham Weiner, professor of data science and statistics at the University of Penn-Wharton. But even if we accept them, it's still a super low death toll for an armed conflict in the modern age, especially one that is being fought in the most population dense place in the entire world. There's 2.1 million people living in Gaza. That's a lot of people. Whereas Mariupol only had 400,000. They don't care about people dying. If they did, they would have done the same thing for Ukraine, but we never saw it. We did see some protesters for Ukraine, but nothing like this. There's very clearly ulterior motives.
Do you think part of it as well is the fact that the US have supported Ukraine, whereas the Israel have always been a long-term ally of the US?
Yeah, it could be. It could be partly that. They inside their encampment, when I was in there, they had signs that said like "Down with the West." When I was at Berkeley, I found pamphlets that said "No more USA, no more Israel, Italy." Pretty much every white Western country you can think of, UK. So they don't like America, and I think they're also probably sympathetic to Russia as well, which is very unfortunate. So yeah, I mean, the U.S. was pretty quick to condemn what Russia was doing, sanction them and stuff like that, as opposed to they're not doing that with Israel, and they're way more anti-America than they are anti-Israel. So it happens to be super in line with all the things that they can attack. You know what I
Why are you here?
I'm here to protest the genocide in Gaza, promote divestment. That's basically it.
Why has this particular conflict moved you to such an extent?
I started doing research in the conflict a while back, long before October 7th. And just the way that the Gazan people are oppressed and the way that we fund Israel, our weapons, our money is used to not just, bomb kids, but also to facilitate an apartheid state, which is that's the biggest reason. If all these people weren't out here, I wouldn't be out here either. Not because I don't care, but because I didn't think that anything would change. But because we have such a powerful movement, that's really the biggest reason that I think a lot of people have come out, is because we actually feel like maybe we're going to actually change something.
And what was it about the conflict that motivated you to come out? Was it seeing footage online? Was it seeing clips? Was it people talking about it? What was it about this conflict in particular?
That's a great question. It probably wasn't even the massacre that's happening right now. The thing that really strikes me is probably the apartheid in the West Bank. That's just the thing that kind of takes me aback at how outrageous and grotesque it is. The war in Gaza, the conflict in Gaza, is so inhumane and so obvious that they're targeting civilian centers. I mean, as you know, they demark safe zones and then they bomb the safe zones. They demark evacuation routes and then they bomb the evacuation routes. And then they are literally starving a population. They create bottlenecks at crossings. So there's not one particular thing, but I think the thing that when I first started researching the conflict, it was the West Bank, areas A, B, and C, and how there are settlements and how it's an occupied territory, and how unsettling that is to me.
And you say Gaza is an apartheid state. What do you mean by that?
Well, the indicators of an apartheid state are separate legislatures, separate judicatures, separate education systems, and separate voting cards or IDs. And all of those exist in the West Bank. In fact, discriminatory laws like the Admissions Committee law, like the Hametz law, like the Leave and Bread law, like terrorism, even terrorism laws, which I can get into if you want, but they're all discriminatory, meant to target Arabs, and or I should say Palestinians, and they're meant to achieve the Zionist goal of cleansing greater Israel of all non-Jewish people, which is it's absolutely certainly in the West Bank constitutes an apartheid, and I would argue even in Israel proper, even there, what's happening is it's so obviously discriminatory that it's wrong.
What's going on in Israel that is obviously discriminatory?
There are laws that exist. Like, I mean, like for example, the emissions committee law, which enable heads of neighborhoods to screen every applicant to the neighborhood, and if they don't like it, they don't really have to have a reason. They can reject that person. And actually, this works against Jewish people as well. This works against Palestinians, works against Jews. But it's a discriminatory law that disproportionately targets Palestinians living in Israel. Now, there are also laws like if you're a Palestinian resident, and obviously the housing laws in Israel are such that you're actually encouraged to be a resident rather than a citizen because it's cheaper for you to live there as a Palestinian. And so the laws are such that if you're a policeman, if you're an Israeli policeman, you can revoke the ID of any Palestinian resident at any time. And then obviously there are stop and frisk laws. You can debate, well, are those really discriminatory? But obviously they disproportionately target Arabs or Palestinians living in Palestine. And then we could go on for a long time. Even the leave and bread laws, they allow hospitals to decline to serve Palestinian or Arab patients in Israeli hospitals any food that has any leave-in food or during Passover, which is, this religious discrimination.
What do you think is a solution, and what would you like to see as a solution in the Middle East?
Well, ideally, I like a one-state solution. Everyone has equal rights, equal representation. And obviously, I'd like, in principle, to have a right of return. But practically, I think the best we can hope for is a return to pre-1967 borders, which actually Hamas has said that they'd be open to an agreement with. A lot of people say that Hamas doesn't want any sort of peace or any sort of negotiation. They said we're open to a return to 1967 borders. Palestinian Authority has obviously made many concessions. There probably have to be land swaps, right? So Israel gives land in order to take back their settlements. I personally would like to see all the settlements disbanded because they're out of ordinance with international law. And then obviously the West Bank needs to take control of I think everything, all the West Bank back, and then Gaza should return at the very least to the Green Line, which Israel has obviously infringed upon by building walls that expand past the Green Line. So this, and then obviously monetary concessions from Israel for the horrible crimes that they've committed against the Gazans. Mostly, I mean, a lot over the past 20 years, but really over the past 75 years. And then rebuilding of infrastructure in Gaza needs to be made without investments that would exploit the Gazan people. Obviously, American business owners have gone to third world countries, and they've built businesses, and in a certain way they help the population, but then they also exploit the people. It can't be the case where Israeli business owners are going to Gaza, investing and building businesses and building infrastructure, and then they reap all the benefits, right? So there has to be a system where we know that the money is going to good things, that we know where the money is actually going to, building Gaza into a better place. But we also can't have Israel control that because there's obviously conflicts of interest there.
So how much responsibility should Hamas take for this war, considering what happened with October 7th?
For this war, they obviously, October 7th is what kicked off this immediate conflict. But I think if you look at the Israeli doctrine, the way Israel treated Gaza over the past 20 years in particular, there's no question in anyone's mind that Israel, and actually the way Israel has operated in the 1982 invasion of Lebanon, in 2006 and 2008, Operation Protective Edge, all the operations of the past 20 years and even before, Israel waits for the slightest provocation. I'm not saying October 7th was slight, but they wait for the slightest provocation and then they massacre 1,000 people. It's what's called mowing the lawn. And so this was going to happen no matter what. Does Hamas take responsibility? Should Hamas take responsibility? Of course, they bear responsibility in some ways, and they shouldn't have killed innocent civilians. That being said, something like this, it was going to happen anyways. It was going to happen anyways. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that Israel would have tried to wage a war, an asymmetrical war against Gazans no matter what.
So Hamas have been classified as a terrorist organization by multiple governments, including my own. Do you think Hamas can negotiate an agreement in good faith with the Israeli government, especially considering the October 7th massacre?
So absolutely. Every time that Hamas has negotiated an agreement with Israel, take 2006, for example, Abu Nidal Shabura was assassinated by Israel. In 2008, a couple of Gaza civilians were massacred on the beach. Both ceasefires ended by Israel. In 2014, Israel made up a story about Hamas kidnapping 3 Israeli teenagers, which they denied, and there's no evidence for, and then they attacked anyways. So I'm not saying that Hamas is like a beautiful, peaceful organization. Of course not. What they did on October 7th was really, really, atrocious. And the videos coming out of there are absolutely terrible. That being said, if you're worried about a willing negotiator, an honest negotiator, I'd actually be more worried about Israel. And I'm just going off the history of Israel.
Is it getting physical?
Bro, it's like meme fest. So many memes. So many fucking walking memes and bullshit. Yo!
Viva Fidel! Viva Castro! Viva Fidel! God bless the USA! This is
So what's your name?
My name is SJC on kick.com.
Are you a student here at SJC?
No, but some of my friends are. A lot of my friends are.
Okay. So what brought you down to the protest today?
To document history. This is a historic event. I believe in freedom of speech. I want to hear both sides personally.
Why is this a historic event?
They're taking over a building right behind me. This is borderline terroristic activities. This is domestic terrorism.
Those are pretty strong words at SJC. What makes you think it's domestic terrorism?
To take over an entire building like this, we know their intentions, but is this really sending a message? Is this really sending a message to somewhere else in the world? Do they really know? Are they going to hear this message? Like, is it going to make a difference? Reality.
They might argue that every significant movement that's happened in the world started with protesting. If you think about the civil rights movement, they would argue that maybe this is their civil rights.
It might be, but I mean, we have bigger problems here on the home front. In all fairness.
So you think that they should be more focused on what particular issues as opposed to this one, SJC?
We have a lot of financial issues here domestically. We have a lot of social issues here in the home front. I feel like these issues should be looked at first.
So you're somebody who thinks, and I don't mean it to have the weight that it carries, but America first, so that you should be looking at issues that impact American citizens first, as opposed to what is happening overseas.
I mean, there's a lot of cheap fentanyl coming into this country. I've had a lot of friends die personally from fentanyl overdose. I've gone to their funerals. So I can, I've witnessed statistics.
So you think that we should be focusing more on that than what's happening overseas?
Yeah, most definitely. I think we have more issues here. I mean, we have the financial issue that's the deficit's just getting higher. That ceiling, they keep on raising it. I mean, how much longer can we do that for?
Are you a lecturer, an academic?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes.
And so why have you come here?
I come here to support the students. I am definitely a part of this movement against the genocide in Gaza. I strongly oppose Zionism as a settler colonial ideology and as a fascist ideology, in fact. So I am against any form of injustice, whether against Palestinian, whether against Jewish, whether against any other groups, blacks for that reason. So I'm here to just do what I'm supposed to do, my ethical responsibility to defenseless Palestinians who are being slaughtered in the hand of United States of America. That is my country, and the state of Israel, the Zionist state of Israel.
Why is Zionism? Why do you equate Zionism to fascism?
One, it is a supremacist ideology. Second, the phenomenon of chosen whatever, chosen race, chosen group, chosen religion, it falls under fascism. And it is, of course, a perception that other people, aside from Zionists, have no business of being here, and that is the occupied land. So it is definitely a perception that was even launched by the so-called European Jewish, who, according to many Jewish, have nothing to do with Judaism. So, I mean, this is my short answer to you.
That being the case, how much responsibility do you think Hamas should take for the war at the moment if we look at October 7th?
First of all, see, the issue is this. One, I am against the killing of any innocent children, any innocent human beings, for that sake. But posing the question regarding to Hamas and October 7, I think this is a wrong approach. The issue of Palestine is a very old issue. The ethnic cleansing of Palestinians has been going on for more than 76 years. Not only, because according to many scholars, they tried many things, but it didn't work, until, the full occupation and the full ethnic cleansing. So starting with October 7, it is a wrong approach. However, if you are occupied, if you are being treated as half human being, or according to Ministry of War of Israel, as animal human, then you have right to resist. I will actually reverse that question to you. What will happen if somebody, one of your neighbor, or somebody from another city, let's assume that you are from London, somebody from another city comes and occupy your house and shoot your child and rape somebody in your family? What do? If you can attack them, do you attack them or no? Is that a natural right? Even animal that. According to, if you pursue, even animal intuitively defends themselves. It is one of the nature of all beings. As simple as that.
Okay.
You defend yourself to not be killed, to survive. It is universal.
Free Palestine!
Stop the killing of the children. Those kids are innocent. They did nothing to deserve what they're going through.
You're an alumnus and a visitor to the library. And what do you think of the protests happening at the moment, Rex?
It's frustrating because you can't talk to the protesters.
And why does that frustrate you?
Because they are, in my view, demonstrating in something false and dangerously false that's the result of ignorance, and they do not want to even begin the steps of educating themselves. And if they won't talk to anybody, how are they ever going to change? And if they want to say I'm wrong, they could say I'm wrong, but they won't talk.
And why is it that what they believe is false, or to use your term, dangerously false?
Well, first, they have these talking points. There's genocide. There's no genocide. Genocide is the intentional destruction of a whole race of people. Obviously, Israel's not doing that. If they wanted to, they could easily have simply carpet bombed the whole Gaza and they would all die. They don't want to do that. In fact, they've been taking unprecedented steps to prevent civilian deaths. But it's war and civilians die in war. And that's not genocide. It's the opposite of genocide. That's just an example. It's also not apartheid. You can't describe the situation starting in the middle and just imagine that Israel is imprisoning Gaza people for no reason and not take into account that they've been launching weapons, they're launching missiles into Israel for decades, and that they have been blowing themselves up in the streets with suicide vests for decades. You can't start in the middle and just say, look at what's happening. They don't let us do this. They don't let us do that. You have to say there's a reason, because they're in a state of war. People in a state of war don't have civil rights. They're basically prisoners because they are enemies. So if they don't want to be enemies, they should end the state of war. They can't demand civil rights when they're in the state of war. That's something to say to them, but I can't say to them because nobody's listening.
And why do you think nobody's listening, Rex?
They've been told not to talk.
Who by?
I don't know exactly what they're called, but they are organizers. They tell me they've been instructed by media specialists. I don't know who they are. I've talked to them, but I still don't know who they are. And they just go through the talking points, and you can't talk to them either, because as soon as you say there's no genocide, there's no apartheid, there's no ethnic cleansing, they just move on one to the next, you don't have a conversation, because as soon as you get to the end of the list, they walk away.
And why do you think that this issue has mobilized so many people out to come and demonstrate, as opposed to all the others?
I don't know, I just watched the video that claimed it was because it was a Russian strategy. And that it's been picked up from their propaganda. I don't know if that's true. I don't have any reason. It's very strange. Of course, they have nothing to do with Palestine. They don't know anything about it. They don't even try to learn anything about it. But they've picked this up. It's not like the Vietnam War where students had to go to war. I had a draft number. I was threatened by the Vietnam War. They don't have any relation to Palestine. They're picking it up because it's some kind of necessity to their participation in whatever social justice groups they have. But I don't know, I'm speculating.
As we were waiting on the steps of Moore Hall, protests started to trickle out, and it quickly became confrontational between counter-protesters and content creators. Eventually, we too were embroiled in the chaos.
Israel is fake. Israel is fake. That's kind of crazy. Put me on camera saying that. Faggot.
You guys are all fascists, right-wing fascists. Why? Huh? Why? Look at your YouTube channel. Associated with TRIGGERnometry, you're a fascist. You're right-wing fascist. Why? Just like any.
Just educating. I'm trying to.
Okay, I'll educate you. There's a KKK newspaper called the Stormer. Yeah, people are right for that. Or work with that.
What does that have to do with our YouTube? What does this have to do with YouTube?
It's the same thing. Your publication.
It's a publication.
You understand the logic?
It's a publication. There's zero correlation. It's like, I don't have a stance with it. I'm just trying to learn. I'm trying to educate. And you're telling me that there's a correlation between the KKK newspaper and a YouTube channel documenting the bias on that side, which makes them fascists. That's exactly what you said. There's tape of it. You can't walk yourself into a corner after you've already been backed in.
Why are you here, Jackson?
Honestly, I just heard a bunch of commotion going on, and I just wanted to show up and see what was going on. I don't have like a take on it. All of us, we don't have a take on like either side. We were just trying to figure out what was going on, because I think it's kind of ridiculous that people are getting access blocked off. They can't go to class. Like I have buddies who can't get to class because of something that has zero relation to them. So trying to figure out what was going on, just kind of see from up close as opposed to through a TV screen.
And what effect is this having on your education?
I mean, people can't get to class, right? So if you're going to pay tuition, especially for people who are out of state, right? Even for people who are in state, college is pricey as it is. So if your education is at a high price and you can't get to class because of something that's completely unrelated, and there's an issue and administration, there doesn't seem to be any action to resolve that issue, that's where the issue lies. And I mean, for me, like, again, I have zero affiliation with either side. I'm not educated enough to know about either side. So I'm not going to sit here like most of these people and pretend like I do. I'm telling you straight up that I don't. But when my education is being limited because I can't get to class due to people who have no idea what's going on, I mean, so many of these people in here have zero relation to this. They're trying to ally for one reason or another, whether that be because they want to be up to date with the social media trend or they want to feel included in some type of a community or a group. And it leads to resentment and hate from another side.
And why is it, do you think, that students have been so mobilized by this particular issue?
I think a lot of it is people want to feel a sense of community, which is understandable, right? Especially going to college. For 99.9% of people here, this is their first time. They're in a completely new area. It's a new space with new people. It's a daunting. I mean, it's a competitive school, so they feel like they're competitive against other students, and they want to feel a sense of community, which is understandable. I just don't think that this is the right way to go about doing it. Being angry and violent and limiting other people's education I think that's problematic, and there are no resolutions. This is doing nothing. This is doing literally nothing.
Attacking people. Like we tried to come in, I got pushed. I got full on pushed, and then they slammed the door on me. And I was just trying to walk into class. I got pushed. I got attacked. I'm not Jewish. I'm not Palestinian. I'm a Canadian. I have I've done nothing, and I'm getting attacked. I don't know. I don't think it's fair to me or like just innocent bystanders that they can't go to class. They're paying $70,000 a year, and they can't go and learn and they can't go to class and they're getting attacked by.
Yeah, these people work their ass off in high school. Like, so many of them lost countless weekends doing things, studying, losing sleep over classes to be able to have this opportunity. Education is a privilege; it is not a right, and they've earned this privilege through however it might have been, whether their parents donated a building or whether they genuinely did earn and work for it. One way or another, they are here. They are students here. They are entitled to an education. If they've been accepted to college, if they are paying their tuition, then that's when education doesn't become a privilege. It becomes something that they are entitled to. And at this point, what we're seeing is people's education are being restricted, like literally in broad daylight, and there's nothing that anyone's doing about it.
Not even a cop here. Some of these people, I guarantee, aren't students. Like, I've seen 40-year-old men in the building. I bet they are not students here, and they're sitting in the building. And and they're kicking me out. I pay the tuition to come here, and I'm getting kicked out by people who aren't students. I feel like it's unfair.
He's not a student. He's trying to sit here and call people
I have an
fascists.
opinion, but I don't think I should be kicked out of my school because someone who isn't a student can come, sit in my building, and lock the door on me. Like, I'm paying to come here. I studied all the high school to come here. I got in. I paid, and now some guy can just show up and be like, "Oh no, you can't come because Palestine. You can't come and learn."
Some of my friends had a class in here today, my age, couldn't go in because they was being blocked. Unless I was wearing the proper attire, I guess I could probably go in.
And what's your opinion of these protests?
Well, I'm a great supporter of the First Amendment. If you don't take somebody else's rights away in the process. Even though these signs are very hateful, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names won't hurt me. But some of the stuff is like yelling fire in a theater. They're very hateful, anti-Semitic. You can have political opinions. You can't be racist and say hateful things, especially my opinion, my very humble opinion. These students have very little knowledge of history. I think their historical perspective starts the day they're born and went forward. All this doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Who are you? Who the fuck are you? I'm a Jew! See this? They don't allow Jews in here! That's not they don't allow Jews! God, they don't allow Jews! Say the Shema! Where are you from? What's your background?
I'm not going to talk to you about that now. It's not about not letting
Where are you from? What's your background? What country? What country? What country? And where's your mother from? Okay, where's your background? What's your before Argentina? Where did they come from?
I lived in
Before Argentina, where did they come from?
I'm just saying that you're coming in here and saying that they don't want Jews.
They don't allow Jews in here. Yes, that's true.
To do with Jews.
Bullshit. They don't allow Jews in here.
I'm
You know
Jewish
it.
and I'm part of
They
the
don't
movement.
allow.
As a Jew, I feel very safe in this.
Do they allow Zionists in here?
This is not about.
Do they allow Zionists in here?
Jewish and
Do they
Zionists
allow-
are different.
Tell me the
things.
difference.
There are different.
What's a Zionist? Tell me a Zionist. You're so smart. Tell me definition. One sentence. What's a Zionist? They can't tell you.
Can I explain what Zionism is?
Sure.
Zionism is the idea that Jewish people deserve their homeland. They deserve a country where they can be safe and live and thrive. That's what Zionism is. It's not about Jewish or the chosen people. It's a place where we can be safe. That's what Zion is.
Who the fuck are you? Who the fuck are you? Who is this guy?
You don't push me.
Expose! Divest! We will not stop! We will not rest! You're confused! You're fucking confused! You're in America, you idiot! You're in America, dummy! You're in America!
So we've been at the protests all day and we've been speaking to people. Quite a few people didn't want to be put on camera criticizing the protests, and quite a few people who were pro the protests didn't want to be put on camera either. But what we can see with these protests is that student culture has now become ever more divided. And as a result of that, what you actually see when you talk to people is deep suspicion and hostility between the two sides and the people who are caught in the middle of it. They're blocking off the entrance to the library and to classrooms so people can't go in and study. And what you are seeing widespread is this sense of antagonism. And it's actually really sad because, to be quite honest with you, I don't actually know what this achieves. It certainly doesn't help the cause of the Palestinian people who are losing their lives because of the war. It certainly doesn't help the people who want to go and study and further their education. And it certainly doesn't help the Jewish community here on campus, many of whom said they're deeply worried. It's been really, really interesting for me, the use of the slogans, the chanting, and the fact that they did not want to talk. I thought that the whole point of a protest movement was to protest and to put forward your point of view. And this doesn't seem to be happening. So I don't know how we're going to move this forward if people aren't willing to discuss, listen, and talk.